We are live. It's Panther-Lair Show here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You know the deal. You know what we always ask you to do. Like this video and subscribe. Like this video and subscribe. Like this video and subscribe. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. It's our YouTube channel with all of our Pitt video content where you can see what we're doing every day. We got the daily morning Pitt videos. Lots of football talk there this week because that's always an important thing. And then, we've got this live show every Wednesday night. We were going to have tons of video stuff out of training camp, which starts next week. Pat Narduzzi announced that on Twitter today. No, they didn't give a schedule to the media because why would you do that? But they did at least, Narduzzi announced that the start of training camp is next Wednesday. So that's something to look forward to 1 week from today. July 31st, Pitt will start training camp. I guess when you have a game on August 31st, you started a little bit earlier than usual. I thought they might push it back to the 5th or something like that. But alas, they're starting it early. It's coming in July 31st. Training camp starts next week. We'll have tons of video content at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. And of course, we'll have lots of Pitt content on the message boards and on the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's a place to get all of your Pitt sports coverage and message boards. Talk to other Pitt fans. Getting distracted. There's a lot on the internet right now, and so I'm really looking at a lot of different things, seeing what's going on. But I'll stay very focused here for the rest of this hour. We'll have Jim Hammett join us here in a few minutes. I mean, obviously, we're going to have a lot of training camp to talk tonight. With training camp starting next week, this is our training camp preview episode because next week we will be doing a live show in the midst of training camp. Training camp will be happening as of next week's live show, so we've got that to look forward to. I imagine next Wednesday will be media day, so we'll get lots of comments and quotes from all the Pitt players and coaches, lots of things to disseminate, and that's always interesting and fun, so I'm looking forward to that. But tonight, we've got our training camp preview episode. We're going to be talking everything training camp, everything that's going on, heading into camp. What are the big storylines? What are the things we're watching? Who are the players we're watching? The positions we're watching? All the interesting things that we're trying to figure out as Pitt moves into training camp 2024. All of the big questions, the big storylines, and everything like that. So that's what we're talking about tonight. You can jump in the chat screen over there with your comments and questions about training camp. We can have a little conversation, a little back and forth. Jim and I will get it started, and we would invite you to be part of it as well. So let's bring Jim in now. James, welcome to the program this evening. It's a Wednesday night. Are you following the Zoo Crew game in the basketball tournament?
Yeah, I have it up in another screen, so it's just the two of us and the game on my computer screen at the moment.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
They
accept the cookies. Sign in to view. I don't know if I have time to sign in to view. So what's the deal there? What's happening?
It is tied 79-79, and they are playing to 85.
Playing to 85?
So, yeah, the next 6 points win. And, all right.
And this is what is this thing called? This is the Elam ending or something? Or
yeah, the Elam ending. So, yeah,
Elam ending.
So at the under 4 timeout, rather than play it out, you just you add 8 points to whoever's leading.
So it's whoever gets to that number first.
Yeah. So you avoid all the, fouling and the quick timeouts and all that. And the game ends on a basket. So it's kind of it's a different take on basketball. I was at the game on Saturday, and it was kind of exciting, even though it was at the foul line. But like Jamel Artis hit a foul shot, and everyone stormed the court. So I don't know.
Well, that's interesting. And this is every game. They do this every game. This isn't a.
Yeah, this is for the whole tournament. I think like 2017, TBT adopted the Elam ending. I think a guy's he's like a professor at Indiana, and I think he was just annoyed at watching how college basketball ends. He's like, there's got to be a better way. Like, why are we fouling every 2 seconds? So this is what he came up with. So it's not bad.
All right, cool. Well, keep us posted. Let us know what's going on, and if anything exciting happens. You said Pitt is winning right now?
Zoo Crew is up 81-79.
81-79, and the target's 85. That's what Josh Newark says.
Yes.
Need 85. Okay, so getting close. Before we jump into the training camp talk, I mean, anything interesting from these games that stood out to you tonight or the other two games?
I mean, it's kind of cool to like see these guys come together and just even talking to a few of them before the tournament and after that first game. It's you always hear about Jeff Capel doing the brick by brick, and we're trying to build this thing, a brotherhood, and you always catch a lot of those parallels how Duke runs its program, and that it makes sense that Jeff Capel would try to emulate that. But yeah, so it's kind of a unique thing that these guys are all in town, and I don't know. I mean, it's decent basketball. I mean, these guys are all professionals. Like Nike Savani just signed on to play in the top league in Europe, so I mean, he's pretty legit. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's been pretty good basketball to watch, at least.
And if they win tonight, right? That wins the Pittsburgh region. What's the next move? Where do they go?
I don't know where they go. They play a team, and it's not like an alumni team. It's just kind of like a team that entered the tournament. So it's not like tonight, like they're playing Penn State, and the other night they played West Virginia. It's not going to be like that. I think it's going to be like more like their first game. It's just kind of like group of guys trying to win $1 million type of thing. So I don't know where the game is. I know the finals or the Final Four is in Philly, but I don't know where this next game is going to happen.
Okay, Eberlein Drive.
Yeah, I looked them
up.
Is that
the team we're talking about?
Yeah.
They're one of the two remaining teams from the inaugural tournament in 2014. Huh. Well, I don't know what that is. Date, time, region, TBD. Okay, I see that now as I look at the bracket. Okay, well, I guess like I say, keep us posted, and we'll see what's going on. Maybe lots of people will tune in after this ends. Although, like you, they could probably have two browser windows open at the same time and be following along. Pitt football starts next Wednesday. How about that? Did you know that?
Yeah, it's sneaking up on us pretty quick. I mean, this was media days this week down in Charlotte, and I guess it's full steam ahead.
Yeah, I guess in August 31st, season opener kind of pushes the start of training camp back a little bit, right? I mean, get you a little bit early. I mean, I think they did that when they opened against West Virginia 2 years ago. I think that was like September 1st. So I think camp opened a little bit early that year too. You know what? They've also like built in more like off days into like what the NCAA requires. And I think that has made camp feel longer and start earlier and seem like it's going longer, even though it's the same number of practices, but it kind of pushes it back and maybe starts a little bit sooner. But yeah, here we are. July 31st is going to be the first day of camp. Like you mentioned, they're the ACC Media Day, the ACC football kickoff in Charlotte this week. Jim Phillips said a lot of words. Pat Narduzzi said some words. Gavin Bartholomew, Nate Yarnell, and Donovan McMillan said some words. What, anything jump out to you? Anything from those guys, either the ACC commish or Narduzzi or the Pitt players stand out to you this week?
Yeah, whenever I watched Narduzzi's like formal press conference in front of everyone, I mean, I think he was asked about his legacy, and he kind of deflected that, and he normally does, but in a different manner. It's like, yeah, we were 3-9 last year, so he kind of, he kind of recognized the fact that, yeah, like this whole thing needs to change, and I think he knows it's a big year, and yeah, I think it's funny, like whenever like these kind of things happen, and like someone asked him, like, "Yeah, what do you think about the backyard brawl? What do you think about rivalry games?" And he had like a quick like 2-second throwaway comment about Penn State, but then you see like, Zoo Crew just lost.
Oh, they lost.
Oh
man, what happened? I mean, briefly.
I was
team got to 85, right?
Yeah, so, yeah, that's
seemingly too bad.
Yep,
that's too bad. What a shame.
Well, the run ends.
The basketball run ends in the basketball tournament. That's too bad. Well, oh well. I guess better look next year, right? What are you gonna do? Miss out on $1 million. Where's that million goes to the players? Is that right?
Yeah. I think they divvy it up, and I think like the coaches get a cut too. So like Levance and like Levance, Gilbert Brown, and Jermaine Dixon was the coaching staff for the tournament.
Oh, okay.
Teams. So yeah,
it's too bad. It's too bad. So you're talking about legacy.
Yeah, legacy. But like I was kind of talking about like how these like press conferences go. Like he made like a quick like throwaway comment, like, "Oh, Penn State doesn't play."
Oh, right. Yes.
But like that's like of like the 30 or 20 minutes he talked, like that's what drew a headline. Like a few websites, like they'll make a thing like Pat Narduzzi said Penn State won't play him. And it's like, he wasn't really talking about Penn State, but like, that's what gets clicks. That's what everyone likes. So I don't know, but from the press conference itself, I mean, I think it's just kind of, it was pretty vanilla. I mean, I didn't expect much. Like, I think he reminded people like, hey, like, we're one of the 3 schools that won the ACC sometime in the past decade. So like, yeah, I know we stunk last year, but like, we can still talk a little bit of smack. So I think he slid that one in there too. So I don't know. I mean, there's sometimes these press conferences, you kind of have to manufacture what you want to hear.
Well, it was funny. Like somebody posted on our board a Penn State fan Twitter account that was like, "Here's Pat Narduzzi's annual rant about Penn State." It was like 4 words.
Yeah, like
it was like 5 words or something. It wasn't a rant. Like he barely even mentioned Penn State. He made a passing reference to them in talking about how much he enjoys playing West Virginia. I was like, wait, really? And I'm like, I kept seeing these headlines. I'm like, oh crap, I can't wait to read these comments. Who knows what Narduzzi said this time about Penn State? Like, how would you even write a whole article? Even if you like spend a paragraph talking about the 4-game series that already happened, and you spend a paragraph talking about Pitt's upcoming, I guess you could talk about Pitt's upcoming schedules and where there's room for another non-conference game. You could talk about Penn State's actually, wait, you could flesh out a whole article, couldn't you? Off of like 5 damn words where he says Penn State won't play us. Like, yeah. And that's true. Penn State doesn't deny that. That's not breaking news that Penn State refuses to play. Like, we know that. Everybody knows that. Penn State has said that. Like, I'm done with that whole thing. The backyard brawl is great. It's been great the last 2 years. The environment's been awesome. It's been awesome to be there in 22, to watch it on TV in 23. You were down in Morgantown last year, right? I mean, that was an incredible environment, and it's going to be incrediable here in week 3. That's great. It will be awesome to play Penn State because that environment will be great as well. This is really, really good. And somebody on, actually, I talked about that a little bit on the Morning Pitt today, and there was a comment. It was like, I just Pitt doesn't get anything out of playing West Virginia. They should definitely play Penn State instead. It's like, well, first of all, it's not a choice. They don't have that option. There's one school that will play them and one that won't. So you take the one that will. But like, this is something that I really look at it and I'm like, all right, I don't care about recruiting territories, ticket sales, anything like that. This just like, it's just something that happens and should happen because it's fun. It's enjoyable. Like, God forbid we still do something for that reason. God forbid we still do something for a reason that doesn't have some connection to capital and raising money. Like, it's just something fun to do. Like, that's okay. You could still do things like that sometimes, right?
Yeah, I mean, in this era of college football, like, there's so few things like the backyard brawl anymore. Like, you don't have that. Like, when I've been previewing Pitt's game one by one. Like, I just wrote about SMU. I don't care about SMU. Nobody cares about SMU, but like, Pitt's going to play them. So it's funny when, I guess we kind of got off on the rivalry tangent too, but like, Pitt fans act the same way as Penn State fans about West Virginia. Like, and I don't know if they'll admit that, but like, it's very similar. It's like, whenever you start talking about the backyard brawl, it's unsafe to go to Morgantown, blah, blah, blah. They're the worst fans of the world. I'm like, it's a college football game. Like, get off your high horse, man. Like, it's fun. Like, that's what we were talking about. It's fun. So yeah, I mean, like, the way Penn State people approach Pitt people, it's the same thing Pitt does to West Virginia.
Yeah, and it's not just the fans. For the longest time, the Pitt administration held the same view, and they held themselves as being better than West Virginia, not realizing the irony of, as you say, doing the exact same thing Penn State was doing to them. That tenor has changed, thankfully, over the last few years, and now you've got a series, and it's fun. I tell you, I thought the legacy comment, and the question about legacy, and I think it was the first question Pat Narduzzi was asked at the media day press conference. I really thought that he handled it well, and it kind of reminded me that he's always sort of been realistic about these kinds of things. Like, he was basically like, when you come off a season where you go 3-9, you're not thinking too much about what your legacy is, and nobody really cares what your legacy is at that point. I think he knows well enough, and I think he knew. He was probably standing on the field after the ACC championship game knowing they're going to hate me in like a month again. Like, they're going to hate me the next time I lose a game. And like he wouldn't have predicted that the month of October of 2022 would happen, but he knew that if they hit a hard time, they weren't going to love you anymore. They're going to want you fired no matter what. And you're standing there at the pinnacle. You're standing there at your highest moment of achievement and the highest moment of achievement for the program in 40 years, knowing like, yeah, this probably isn't going to last. This isn't worth very much. They'll turn on you as soon as they can, because that's just what happens. And so I think he's always been realistic about that. And so when you ask him, hey, this is your 10th year, what do you feel like your legacy is? He knows, like, well, right now my legacy is I went 3-9. And that's all that matters. My legacy is I blew that game against Wake Forest and had terrible decision making with the quarterback and blew a bunch of games early in the season. Like, he knows that's his legacy now, more than the ACC championship or the Coastal or anything else. His legacy is that they went 3-9. And so I can't say it was like refreshing, because I think he's led on about this before, but I think he is realistic about where things stand and how sort of fleeting success can be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and whenever you go to these press conferences, everyone wants accountability. Everyone wants to say, it's my fault. We need to do this better. We need to do that better. And, usually whatever they say never really placates everyone. I mean, everyone still is like, why didn't he say this? Why didn't he do this? But like, I think actions speak louder than words. And I think going back to, changing the whole offensive staff, like breathing new life into the program. I mean, he knows this is a big year. He knows he couldn't just hire another guy that was just going to run a pro style set. Like, he knew everything kind of needed to flip a little bit. They need to score points. It's 2024. So, I mean, yeah, so he can walk the walk, but he also have to talk the talk. And so far he has. I mean, like, making those kind of changes, never in my wildest dreams did I ever picture Pat Narduzzi would have an offensive coordinator that's younger than I am, that never coached, Power 5 football, that kind of runs what he would probably call himself a gimmick offense, something that he wouldn't like to defend. So, yeah, I mean, it goes against everything he's ever really stood for as a head coach. So, and I think that's refreshing. So you can say what you want to say in a press conference and you can acknowledge things, but I think actions are more important. I think so far the actions have been good.
Was Cade Bell a desperation hire for Pat Narduzzi, in your view?
I don't know if it was desperation. It was just something that whatever reason, he thought, I need to step outside of my comfort zone. I need to try something different. This just wasn't working. So I don't know if it's desperation, but like, I mean, ultimately that's what it kind of comes down to in a way, because if this doesn't work out, then, in 2 or 3 years, we're probably going to have some conversations about him as a head coach. So I don't know if it's a desperation hire, but it's an important hire, and it's one that's going to dictate the conversation moving forward.
I'm not even sure if it's a bad thing if it's a desperation hire. I think it's okay to be desperate after you go 3-9, unless you think it was like a really, really fluky 3-9. Then I think it's okay to be desperate and be like, I got to swing for the fences on this and go crazy. You know what I mean? And go, as he said, quote, outside the box or out of the box, or however you put it. I think it's okay to be a little desperate when you kind of hit the bottom that they hit. You know what I mean? To be as bad as they were, I think calls for desperate measures and drastic action. And I think that's what he took. So that's what we're going to talk about for the next 4 weeks, the next 4 months. What's the biggest storyline in training camp, Jim, that doesn't have to do with Cade Bell's offense? Yeah.
Biggest
like
story?
and the offense itself working or not working. You if you want to say it's some of the offensive players, okay. But other than will Cade Bell's offense work, what's the biggest storyline entering training camp?
I mean, just outside of the offense itself, I mean, I think it's Nate Yarnell being a full-time starter for the first time. I mean, it has to be. I mean, he performed well at the end of last year, and whenever he had to mop up some games for Veyer and whatnot. But like, it's a different thing whenever you go into the season as the starter. And coming out of the training camp, I don't know if he ever said the words Nate Yarnell is our starting quarterback, but he went to ACC Media Days this week, so I think that kind of answered everything about it. But yeah, I mean, a lot hinges on the offense itself working, but a lot, as we saw last year, that goes hand in hand. It's the offensive coordinator needs to, set up good plays, and the quarterback needs to execute them. And last year they had neither. So yeah, I mean, the offense can look great. It could be structured correctly, but you need a quarterback to execute it. So, I mean, I think, this whole season's going to be tied to Cade Bell and Nate Yarnell one way or another.
Nate Yarnell in 2 games as a starting quarterback last year, 36 of 54 for 472 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 67% completion percentage. Take those 2 starts, projected over 13 games. He throws for 3,068 yards, 19.5 touchdowns, and 6.5 interceptions. If Nate Yarnell throws for 3,000 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, Pitt record is
8-4.
8-4. Well, this is 13 games.
Oh, well. Flip a coin for the bowl game. I don't know, but yeah, I guess 8-5. I'm staying 8-5. I'm not getting I'm not too overly optimistic about this team, and I guess we'll get into that over the next hour.
Years, months. I feel like we said this before. Like they either go 7-5 and beat like an Eastern Michigan in a crappy bowl game to go 8-5, or they go 8-4 and lose to like a whoever. Not a Stanford, but like a Northwestern. Yeah, exactly, or a Navy. And go 8-5. I mean, 8-5 feels like an appropriate record for this. Feels like an appropriate record for this team. That would be a hell of a stat line, though. Do you think Nate Yarnell throws for 3,000 yards in 13 games?
I think he's going to have every opportunity to do so, because I still need to see how this offense operates in a game. I mean, we saw glimpses during the spring and the blue and gold game, but like he's going to have opportunities to throw the ball like that. Like if they're completing passes, they're running more plays. That's more passing attempts for Nate Yarnell, and that's more chances for yards. So I don't think it's out of I don't think that's even having a crazy season. I think that's just kind of going to be standard. Like if this offense even works a little bit, the quarterback should throw for 3,000 yards.
2019, Kenny Pickett threw for 3,098 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. And that team went 8-5. So we're talking about Nate Yarnell potentially throwing 7 more touchdowns. It's got to be good for another winner. But that team also went 7-5 in the regular season and beat Eastern Michigan in the final 30 seconds or whatever it was. So maybe those 7 extra touchdowns get them to be 8-4 in the regular season, and then they still lose the bowl game and go 8-5. I don't know. What's your percentage certainty that when they walk on the field against Kent State, Nate Yarnell's the starting quarterback? I know he went to Charlotte this week, and that really sort of cemented it for me. Are you at 100%?
As long as he's healthy, I'm at 100.
Wow. Josh Newkirk, not Josh Newkirk, the former Pitt basketball player. Josh Newark says, if Nate Yarnell's the starter, why is Eli Holstein my default starter in NCAA 25? Does Narduzzi really know more than EA Sports? Do you have the game, Jim? Are you playing the game?
I have.
Have you played Pitt? What are your observations about Pitt on the game so far?
I actually played with Holstein instead of Yarnell too. So
intentionally, or is that what was set up?
No, I think intentionally, because I think he can run a little bit more in the game. I think the speed is there. So I've only played 1 game with Pitt, and it didn't go well.
Who'd you play against?
I forget. I've played a bunch of games already, but yeah, there's not like in one of my 3-2-1 columns, I tried to guess who would be the highest rated Pitt players, and I think I got most of them close. I think McMillan's good, and Bartholomew, and I think Robbie Hammond's actually pretty good in the game too. So, yeah. But Pitt's doesn't have any superstar players. I think their best overall player is an 85 or something.
Is that McMillan?
I think so. Yeah.
Who's rated higher, Holstein or Yarnell?
I think they're both 79. So the game built in the quarterback competition. It left it for interpretation. So
what are they even evaluating Eli Holstein on? You know what I mean? What is there to give you at least Nate Yarnell has played in some games, but how do you even build an evaluation and give a rating to Eli Holstein?
I don't know. I think some guys that were good recruits out of high school got credit just because he was a former top 100 recruit, he might have got a few grace points there. I don't know. I mean, that's quite an undertaking to try to make a video game with 130 teams, but they did fairly good
How
job.
what's Arch Manning rated? You know,
I don't know because he's actually not the Texas starter, so I don't.
right?
Maybe he goes through the transfer portal in the game.
Well, here's a headline that gets its grade. See, this is how they do it with the clickbait. You know, he's an 87 overall.
Yeah, that seems ridiculous. He's never like played.
I mean, it's only 8 points better than Eli Holstein, who has never played.
Yeah.
The Panther says, and I'm curious if you run into this as well, kind of off the wall question. There's no way that these plays are accurate on this video game. Are they? Because I can't stop the wind with Pat Narduzzi's defense. And Wolf HD followed up and said, no one can stop anything in college football video game. The game was kind of designed that way. Have you found that to be the case, that defense is a bit lacking in the video game?
Yeah, defense is really hard. It's different from like the Madden games from the past few years. Like you're giving up points. Like you're pretty much playing like old school, like Pac-12 after dark every game. It's like 49-42. Like that's just how the game is.
What is it? You can't call good coverages, or what? Like, what's the challenge?
I feel like tackling's really hard. Like the game itself, like the computer like breaks all these tackles and stuff. So like yeah, like every game is just a shootout. So
yeah, Panther says it seems like somebody's always open in the passing game. Had me nervous. Our offense will be good if we can get a fast quarterback. I had to put in Eli just because he's faster. Oh, see that? You and
I'm not the
and
only
Panther.
one.
Yeah. Have you found that it seems like guys are open a lot in the passing game, or is it just the breaking tackles?
Yeah, the guys are open in the passing game. So I don't know. It's the first time they've made the NCAA football game in 11 years. So I don't know if they worked out all the bugs, but it's cool that it's just back, like having all the uniforms and stadiums, and it's very customizable, and you can different modes and all that stuff.
Right. Just kind of glancing through here, people are talking about the game a little bit. Like, did you get curious? And you said you only played one game with Pitt. Did you dig into like some of the newcomers, see how like Raphael Williams looks, or Desmond Reed, or
yeah, like
one of the defensive linemen, or
yeah, I mean, I think like Poppy Williams and like Lee are towards the top of the depth chart for the wide receivers. Like I think they're above Reynolds and Kenny Johnson. So
okay.
I don't know. Again, I don't know how they came up with those ratings, but yeah, and not everyone's in the game. Like Elliot Donald's not in the game, which is weird.
That's interesting.
I mean, like, because like players got a free copy of the game and $600 just by allowing them to use their name. So it kind of
just
seemed
to be in it.
Yeah, it seemed like a pretty easy thing to sign up for.
Yeah, I wonder why he would. I mean, that's something he would have had to decline. Yeah, it's either decline or.
There's a couple Pitt guys not in the game, and I don't know why.
Who? Anybody else particularly notable?
I want to say like Whittington's not in the game. None of this. Like most of the starters are at least in the game.
Right.
Like,
right.
I don't know if Anthony Johnson's not on the Pitt roster just yet, so
maybe
maybe that's why the defense isn't working. You need that defensive tackle.
You need Anthony Johnson. So this is interesting. So I mean, I'm tomorrow's morning Pitt is about position battles and some of the top position battles, and obviously defensive tackle is one that I talked about a lot. Who starts at defensive tackle? Like, what's your prediction on who's the starter at defensive? Did you write? I think I wrote the position preview on defensive tackles, and I forget what I said. I think I said Nikai Johnson and Sean Fitzsimmons. Is that who you go with, or who do you see starting this year?
I mean, both of those guys make sense. I thought Nikai Johnson left spring ball like kind of towards the top of the depth chart, so I kind of think it's him. But I don't know if like Nick James makes an impact. We didn't even see Anthony Johnson because he transferred after spring, so we don't really know what Pitt is getting there. But yeah, Fitzsimmons and Johnson seems like a good guess. But like I think like during defensive tackle week, I read one of your articles, and I think during the depth chart one, you were like, I don't know. Like, I don't know what the depth chart's going to be. There's 7 or 8 guys on scholarship, and like they're all on equal footing right now.
Yeah, I did the same thing with the cornerbacks today too. I was just like, I really don't know. I think Rylan Gandy's going to be a starter, but I have no idea about the other spot. I just, it's a total crapshoot because it's just wide open. And like the thing is, and actually both of those positions are similar, defensive tackle and corner, in that last year you had like 3 guys in the case of corner or 4 guys in the case of defensive tackle who took all the starts and played all the snaps, and now they're all gone. And the guys that are returning, like, played no snaps. No defensive tackle played more than 100 snaps last year for Pitt. None of the guys that are returning for Pitt played more than 100 snaps. None of the corners played more than like 50 snaps last year. And so there's no like obvious option. You know, there's no like, oh, who is the top backup? Well, the top backups are all gone. Who's the guy who like played a lot of snaps in a rotational role? Those guys are gone. DeAndre Jules went to South Carolina. Danielson and Bentley and Green are, you know, they're probably like 32 years old right now. They've all moved on. Like Williams, Woods, Devonshire played all the snaps. And next was like, I think I still have it open here. Rylan Gandy played 53 snaps. That's the next most at cornerback. So there's no obvious option at D tackle or a corner. Again, I think I went with Nakai Johnson and Sean Fitzsimmons just because I'm sort of buying in on Nakai Johnson working the transition from defensive end to defensive tackle. And I've just kind of been waiting for Fitzsimmons to go off, but it could be those two, or it could be Nick James and Anthony Johnson, or it could be Elliot Donald and Isaiah Neal. Like any combination of those 6, some are more likely than others. It could be. And I think the same thing at corner. Like, I think it's going to be Rylan Gandy. I have a little bit more certainty on that position on corner than I do D tackle. I think it's going to be Rylan Gandy. And then I have no idea at all. I don't know if it's going to be Tamon Lynham or Tamarian Crumpley or Rashad Battle or Noah Bigelow or Jeremiah Anglin or Shadarian Harrison. I have no idea. Do you have a prediction on corner of who's going to start there?
I mean, during spring ball, it kind of seemed like it was Battle and Gandy, but it's hard to say because like everything was split up and for the game itself. But I don't know. I mean, I think that one's wide open. And like, I think even going into last year, like knowing that Pitt had 3 senior corners, like we were wondering like, I wonder who that 4th quarter going to be. Cause like, he probably needs to get some snaps. And like, I guess it was Gandy, but like, what'd you say? 53 snaps? Like, so he didn't get
snaps in 6 games.
So yeah, that never happened. So I don't know. I mean, like I look at that list and like some of those guys I know they were really excited about as recruits. Like I think they were like super high on Shadarian Harrison and he redshirted last year. So like, does that leave the possibility that like maybe he has a breakout year? Like he's ready to roll as a redshirt freshman, or like, you know, they jumped on Anglin in the transfer portal. I mean, he played a little bit for Kentucky at least last year. So he might be actually one of their more experienced guys just because I think he played, but I don't know. I mean,
I don't think he didn't play. He tore his ACL, but he played really well in the spring.
Okay,
he didn't play in any games last year because he was hurt. But he played really well in the spring for Kentucky. Yeah, he had a big pick or a pick 6 or something in the spring game, and so like,
I'm thinking of.
Yeah, so he had a lot of good pub there. And I mean, you like, it's funny. You're like, oh, it seemed like Gandy and Battle were the guys in spring. Well, Gandy, yes, but like Battle and Crumpley were the same number. So was it Battle? Like it might have been Crumpley.
I think so.
You know, like, and that's the thing on the roster that they updated. Those 2 guys are still both wearing 15. So how are you going to have 2 corners wearing 15? Like, how can I believe in either one of those guys when they both wear the same jersey number? It doesn't exactly speak to the confidence. And Tamon Lynham was presumably brought in to be a starter, but then he got hurt during the spring. So he has, you know, is up in the air. Shadarian Harrison, like you said, they're super high on him, but he got hurt last year. He got hurt again in the spring. So, I mean, you know, I don't want to say you can't make the club from the tub, but it's hard to impact the club from the tub. And that's sort of where he is. I just don't know. But there's like a blind faith. I said this on the message board, and I still kind of feel it. Like, I think there's a blind faith that they're just going to reload at corner because that's what they've always done, right? Like year after year, you know, when they've had guys get hurt or they've had guys graduate or move on, like they've just been able to plug more guys in. Like, we may not know who the starting corners are going to be, but do you have like that kind of blind faith confidence that they'll probably be fine?
I mean, almost in the same sense that I had blind faith confidence with the safeties last year. I mean, last year they went in with, you know, veteran cornerbacks, and we knew that, and we didn't know, like, oh yeah, Javon McIntyre played well towards the end of the season, and Donovan McMillan was once a 4-star recruit, but like they played really well, and like now safety is probably one of the strongest pieces on the whole team. So I don't know. I mean, I trust, you know, Sanders and Collins. They've been really good, and even like those years whenever you don't think they have something, like last year, like they did have something at safety. So this year they might have something at corner.
Yeah, I mean, like I am completely sold on the safety position. I think they're loaded. I think they've got talent, they've got experience, they've got depth, and it's going to be really remarkable as they go like Hamlin and Ford, and you could backdate it to like Whitehead, but that would be like Whitehead and Briggs, and so you're not going to really get too excited about that duo. But like Hamlin and Ford to Hallett and Hill to McIntyre and McMillan to Brookins and Anderson. And I think Brookins and Anderson are going to be awesome. Like I think Cruz Brookins is going to battle for a starting job and playing time at safety this year. I really do. I don't think Donovan McMillan's going anywhere. I think he's going to have 110 tackles. I think he's going to be first team all ACC, and I think he's going to get drafted in the spring. I think Donovan McMillan's going to be great. But I could totally see Cruz Brookins pushing Javon McIntyre next year or this coming season for a starting job and or playing time. And you know what? PJ O'Brien, as you can tell from his social media, certainly feels like he should be in the mix as well. I think there's going to be a real battle for playing time there. And I think with McMillan, McIntyre, O'Brien, Brookins, and Anderson, I just think they're loaded. I mean, I just think it's strong. It's deep. They've got 3 really experienced guys and 2 really talented redshirt freshmen. Like, that's the strongest position group on the team, right? I mean, it's got to be.
I think so. I mean, yeah, you have like because like even in the preseason, like everyone's talking about Donovan McMillan. Like he is probably the team's best player or the most notable player. And I mean, I think Javon McIntyre, he kind of flies under the radar. And you know what? He actually might be like the highest rated Pitt player over McMillan. I think it's McIntyre on the video game.
You know what? Somebody said that.
Now that like I'm kind of recalling now, and it's actually him. Yep. Thank you.
Wolf HD said it. Javon McIntyre is the highest rated. So that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Because McMillan is the one getting all the pub. Like McMillan is the one getting talked about all the time. I mean, he's getting first team all ACC preseason honors. I'll be curious to see. I'm guessing he won't make, because when the ACC does their official preseason all conference stuff, they don't do a second team, do they? Don't they just do like a first team?
It's just a one. And I think last year Pitt's only representative was Gonsalves.
Is that right?
He was preseason all ACC. I think he was the only one on the team.
I'm not going to look up. It doesn't matter. Yeah, so it's probably unlikely that McMillan is going to go as one of the top 2, preseason picks at safety. I don't know if their name recognition is there, and Pitt went 3-9 and all of that stuff. By the end of the year, I mean, I think, again, 110 tackles, 115 tackles, and I think he's first team all ACC. I mean, I think he probably should have been like a second team pick this past season, but because Pitt was so bad, I think he got overlooked. But yeah, I think he's going to be a tackling machine again. And, that was probably one of the upsides of teams trying to run the ball as much as they did on Pitt, is that, Donovan McMillan could put up 1 billion tackles. Instead of having a bunch of sacks as a team, you got a safety with like 100 plus tackles. Josh Newark points out that Ben Sauls is right-footed in the EA game. Did you notice that? I think I saw a screenshot of it.
Yeah, so I think maybe the Loyal Sons or something like posted that on Twitter.
Yeah. So that's a bit of a mistake. Josh also points out that Sean Fitzsimmons was hurt quite a bit last year. By my bet, he's the breakout defensive tackle. I'm on board with that. I think he should be in line for a breakout season. I think he should play well this year. He was hurt and missed a lot of time. I think last year should have been, I think he should have had an opportunity to break out last year, but you still had those 3 like super seniors, and you had DeAndre Jules, who really did have the breakout season. I don't know if Fitzsimmons would have cracked that rotation, but if he's healthy now, I think he's going to be a pretty main contributor. Who's a breakout guy on defense for you this year, Jim?
I don't know. I mean, I think there could be a couple. I mean, I've pointed to the linebackers a lot because I'm really high on them. But like, we've kind of been talking like Braylon Lovelace had a pretty good year, but like, I don't know, maybe like Jordan Bass was like their number 1 recruit like 2 years ago. Like, what if he lives up to the hype that, everyone thought he could be? I mean, he looks like $1 million. I mean, he's going to take over like that Bengali Kamara role. It's just like this awesome looking linebacker that's a freak athlete that should be putting up 1 million tackles. So I mean, I think he could be a breakout candidate. I mean, I think Sean Fitzsimmons is a good one. Whoever starts at corner is going to have that opportunity. Lovelace himself. I mean, there's options. I mean, there's this defense is very player friendly. Like, you can put up stats in this defense. So, I mean, I think we're going to see some guys that, haven't been playing take on these big roles. I mean, it just felt like we're finally past the point of like the super senior, like the 2021 team. Like, I feel like the ghosts of that team are gone. Like, there's nothing left. It's kind of like a brand new team. These past couple of years, like, they were just hanging on with guys like Marquez Williams and David Green and, like, trying to keep it going. But like, now it feels like a whole new different team. So there's going to be guys making plays. So I don't know. Jordan Bass might be my breakout guy for defense.
Yeah, I mean, the oldest guys among the defensive tackles that they recruited, not counting like Anthony Johnson, are like Elliot Donald and Nikai Johnson, who were recruited in the 2021 recruiting class. I mean, all those linebackers you talked about, there's Brandon George, but everybody else, Kyle Lewis was 2022, I want to say. Bass and Biles and Lovelace were the 23 class. So, I mean, those are all like young guys. I want to say Gandy was the 2022 class. So, I mean, to your point, there's a lot of guys who were recruited sort of in the aftermath of the ACC championship, like a lot of guys who were recruited, post COVID, and they're the guys that they're turning to. Brookins and Anderson, like I mentioned, and PJ O'Brien was, I think, the 21 class. No, I think he was 22 as well. 22, 23, that would make him a junior this year. Maybe not. He might have been 21. Either way, but I mean, like, 21. Yeah, they're all guys who were recruited in the last like 3 or 4 years. It is it's a changing over where all those guys from the 2018 class and 2019 class who have hung around forever, they're finally sort of being shifted off the roster and moving on and running out of eligibility. And the result is you're going to see a much younger team. And I think there's some excitement in that. I think that can be a good thing and a fun thing to watch once that, finally comes to fruition. You finally start seeing some of those guys out there, but then you also are faced with the fear of whether or not they're actually going to do anything. As we get closer to training camp, I think more and more people will be tuning into these podcasts and, keeping up on all the Pitt stuff. And everybody who listens to the Wednesday Night Live Panther-Lair Show inevitably loves college football. But if you, the listeners, also have health and fitness goals too, listen up, because Chris Gates Fitness is back to sponsor the show. It's great to have Chris back, and he just launched his online fitness membership. It's called Training Camp. Now, this is Chris Gates Training Camp. It's different from Pitt Football Training Camp. Chris Gates Training Camp is a monthly fitness program. It's designed specifically for football fans, and it's honestly like nothing you've ever seen before. I was poking around on the site earlier today. There's so much info and information. There's so much information. There's so much you can dig into of workout programs and different exercises. Every part of your body you want to target with an exercise. Chris has breakdowns all there. He's been coaching people for years. He's a massive Pitt fan, and he's created a community in Training Camp that blends fitness and sports together to help you achieve your goals while connecting with a community of sports fans doing the same thing. Whether you've struggled to stay consistent in the past, you felt confused about what exercises to do, or you just needed more accountability, Training Camp is here to help. When you join Training Camp, you'll get top-notch coaching from Chris. He'll deliver monthly workout plans to help you remove all the guesswork with exercising so you can just show up, put in the work, and have confidence that what you're doing is working. The workout plans are customizable and designed to fit your busy lifestyle so you can stay consistent and see progress. You'll also join private online Training Camp community where members gather for support, participate in challenges, win prizes, and more. And Training Camp is it's centered around sustainable results. There's no crash diets or extreme routines. You can drink beer and go to tailgate for the Pitt games in the fall and still make progress. Training Camp will teach you how. You get all of this for less than your weekly coffee run. In fact, right now, and this is only for a limited time, Chris Gates is offering a massive discount. If you sign up this week, use the promo code Panther-Lair, you get your first month for $10. That's 80% off the monthly price. Promo code Panther-Lair, $10 for the first month, an 80% discount. Go to chrisgatesfitness.com/Panther-Lair. We got our own subdomain on chrisgatesfitness.com right now. chrisgatesfitness.com/Panther-Lair. to sign up. Use the promo code Panther-Lair to get the discount, 80% off. This discount is not going to last long. Go check it out. chrisgatesfitness.com/Panther-Lair. So we just talked about breakout players on defense, Jim. Who's breaking out on offense this year? And you can define breakout however you want, like a guy having a career year, a guy, emerging as a team leader and one of the studs, like however you want to define it. Who's a breakout guy on offense this season?
How about Rodney Hammond? He's been around, and we thought last year was going to be his big year, and for whatever reason, usage and injury and scheme and quarterback and offense coordinator, everything worked against him, and he didn't put up a big year. But late in the year, he did have that good Boston College game. I think he had a big 50-yard run and a 100-yard game, and he's capable of being a big-time player. And I don't know where the running game is going to fit into this offense, but I do know being a good playmaker is going to get you the ball. So I think Rodney Hammond can make plays for this team. I think he's capable of being, I think he usually maxes out around 550 yards. I don't know if he's going to get quite to 1,000, but I think he's capable of doing more than, 500 yards. So I think that's going to be a big piece of the offense. And I don't know, I feel like I've been asked who the breakout candidate is going to be several times this offseason, and I'm just trying to touch on everyone.
I like it. He gets close to 1,000, but doesn't get 1,000 because they spread the ball around, because they throw more, or what? What makes you think that? Because usage or design of the offense. What do you think?
I think a little bit it's going to be more pass centric. I think they're going to get Desmond Reed involved. I think that they like what he can bring, and so I think it's just going to be more of a matter of spreading the ball around more than anything against him in particular.
Over the course of Rodney Hammond's 3-year career, he has carried the ball 10 or more times in a game 17 times. Pitt's record in those 17 games is 12-5. It's not bad. Yeah. Over the course of Rodney Hammond's 3-year career at Pitt, he has carried the ball 15 or more times, 8 times in his career. Pitt's record in those 8 games, 8-0. Now, New Hampshire in 2021 is certainly one of those games. But Duke in 2021, Virginia and Syracuse in 2021, West Virginia in 2022, Syracuse in 2022, the Sun Bowl, plus the Boston College game this past year. This is a correlation causation thing, but when he carries the ball 15 times, they've never lost a game. That's probably correlation, not causation, right?
Yeah.
It's not why they beat. They didn't beat Virginia in 2021 because Rodney Hammond carried the ball 21 times. They beat Virginia, or carried the ball 15 times. They beat Virginia in 2021 because Jordan Addison forced a fumble on an interception and took it in for a touchdown. That's why they beat Virginia. It's not because of Rodney Hammond. They didn't beat UCLA in the Sun Bowl because of Rodney Hammond carrying the ball 25 times. They beat UCLA because Nick Patty tucked the ball and ran in an insane situation to tuck the ball and run. But I don't know. I think we have talked about this at different points over the offseason. The hype about Desmond Reed is starting to filter into my brain. And it's starting to make me think that maybe he actually will be a big part of this offense. Bigger than I expected him to when I saw him stand up, have to climb up on a stool to see over the podium in January when we first talked to him. I think that's going to siphon carries and yards off of Rodney Hammond this year.
Yeah, I think anymore in modern football, you need 2 or 3 backs to get through a season, get through a game even. So they're both going to play, but yeah, I don't think the hype in the offseason was unfounded. I think Cade Bell brought him along for a reason. I think, 1, for the comfort of knowing the offense, and 2, because he thinks he can make plays at this level. And I guess he did that in practice a little. We didn't see a lot of it in the spring game, but I think he ripped off some big runs and surprised some people during the spring. So yeah, he's not very big. They've had small running backs before, like Vincent Davis. Rodney Hammond's not tall, but he's not small. But Desmond Reed's a pretty small guy. He's kind of built more like Vincent Davis than Rodney Hammond.
Yeah, but I think he's faster than Vincent Davis, right? This is the big thing, is the speed, right?
speed, and I would say his like cutting ability too. Like I think he would, he can make a guy miss. I mean, like Vincent Davis was just like a small running back. Like he wasn't like a speed back. Like they didn't have like special packages for him. Like he lined up in I formation and he was just smaller than the other running backs. But so I mean, I think Desmond Reed, I think, is different. I mean, I think you can line him up in the slot. I think he's going to go in motion. I think you can run routes with him. I think there's different ways they're going to get him the ball. So I think that's probably part of the reason Ronnie Hammond's not going to get 1,000 yards, but it's still at the same time, I think both of them can. There's a space for both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Yeah. Vincent Davis, like, I think we all assumed he was fast because he was small, but
it's just a small running back. That's all.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if all that speed was really there. Few comments here. Football Hawk says Narduzzi named Nick James as one of the defensive tackles he's excited to watch this year. What do you think? I feel like I just didn't hear a lot about James in spring camp. For a guy who came in as a transfer, a former 4-star guy, I thought they'd be talking him up a lot in spring camp, and there just wasn't much. There wasn't a big deal made about it, and that doesn't necessarily mean he's not going to perform, but I don't know what to expect. And he didn't really do much at Indiana either. So I don't know. What are your expectations for Nick James, Jim?
I want to did he have like some sort of like cast type thing on his wrist during?
Yeah, I think he had something for a while.
So
yeah.
I wonder if that's why we didn't hear a lot about him, because I don't know how much he practiced. I mean, I think he practiced some with it on, but like it probably limited him some. But yeah, I don't know if he's going to be a big, like, in Pitt's defense, there's always, 2 defensive tackles, and there's one that's going to be the guy that makes all the plays, the flashy one, the Kalijah Cansey, the Jalen Twyman, and like that's who like Sean Fitzsimmons is, and like I don't think that's who Nick James is. Like I don't think that's his game. Like he's going to be more of the guy that's taking on 2 blockers and taking up space, eating, just crushing things in the middle. So I think he could be effective, but like I don't know if you're getting like 7 sacks out of him or a bunch of tackles for loss. Like, I don't think that's who he is, but I still think he can be productive.
Yeah, last year at Indiana, played 140 total snaps, rushed the passer on 63 snaps, recorded 3 pressures, one against Indiana State, one against Rutgers, which is like Indiana State, and one against Michigan State. So not too productive. 5 career pressures in 2 seasons at Indiana, and maybe he will be that guy. That was one of my takeaways from spring camp. Is I was like, who's like the big like space eater among the defensive tackles, because they all seem to be built kind of that same sort of size. Elliot Donald's a little bit taller, but they're all just sort of quicker. Actually, Will Z points out, as a side note, Francis Brew looks like a juggernaut in photos. He does look big, and he's another guy who was, I think, a little banged up in the spring. He tweeted out some photos early, like just a little bit ago, earlier tonight, and looked pretty jacked. Maybe he can be that kind of guy, but I feel like most of these guys, like Nakai Johnson's not that big of a defensive tackle. Even Anthony Johnson's not that big. Sean Fitzsimmons, like you mentioned, is more that quicker guy. Isaiah Neal's more of that quicker guy. I saw him at one of Pitt's prospect camps, and I thought he was a linebacker or something. I mean, he's bigger than a linebacker, but I was surprised that he's not bigger. But I don't, size is not his strength. Jasir Whittington is not going to be a guy who's going to take up a ton of space. I mean, these are quick guys who are going to get into the backfield, which is great to have those guys, but you'd like to be able to offset them with Jeremiah Taleni or Tyreek Jarrett or Devin Danielson or David Green or any of those guys who lined up next to Jalen Twyman or Kalijah Cansey. And I'm not sure that they have that guy. Maybe James is it. The Panther says that Desmond Reed in the Wildcat is unstoppable on the game. So if you play, can you call a Wildcat play? Is like their Wildcat package in the playbook on the game?
Like I would think some teams do. I didn't notice like Pitt, but like if you change the playbook to someone that has the Wildcat, I guess.
Yeah.
But I guess I didn't really explore Cade Bell's video game offense that well.
I mean, that would be good, like research, to find out about the offense and what it looks like and how it works. And I remember on Madden, I used to do this thing where I would like pick a couple like plays. Like I imagine you could be like, okay, in this one shotgun formation, trips or whatever it is, I'm going to change the personnel. And so the quarterback is actually going to be like the running back. You know what I mean? Like I'm going to put the running back in at quarterback. I used to have this like tight end leak play where I'd put like Antoine Randall because the tight end could always get open. But when it was Heath Miller, he only got like 7 yards. Well, when it was Antoine Randall, it was like a 90-yard touchdown every time. So, you could sub in the personnel there. Although Josh Newark says the Wildcat is in the Pitt playbook. So maybe you should try that if you go back to play it again. Maybe you should give it a go. So what else? What else do we not? What else have we not? We've got 4 minutes left, Jim. What else have we not talked about with this team? What about punting? Somebody asked me this for the mailbag. I mean, is it just Caleb Junko? Do we just resign ourselves to that and hope he gets better?
I kind of think that's the plan. I who is the backup? It's the kid from Bell Vernon, or Cam Guess.
Guess, yeah.
I don't think he's going to unseat him. Like I think it is Junko. So I don't know. I mean, they brought in a new special teams coordinator, and you would have to think like Bronowski had to watch him punt for a while to be like, okay, I'm cool with this. Like, and they went through spring ball. Like they could have addressed the punter at several different points this offseason, and they changed coordinators and did everything, and they still stuck with him. So there has to be a belief that he's going to get better, right?
I guess so. I guess. I don't know what the other option is. So
there isn't one.
No, there's not.
It's Cam Guess.
It's Cam Guess. I'm just now looking now. Jim, are you like me? Do you frequently go to the media guide on Pitt's website?
I did it a lot this year for basketball. Like if I'm like tracking a stat, like this year I was like tracking Blake Hinson's like 3-pointer. So like it was like my favorite page on the internet for a while.
Well, unfortunately, football has gone the way of basketball. In the past, the football media guide, when you clicked on media guide, it had the different sections. You could go directly to record book. You could go to Pitt and the pros. You could go to history and find exactly what you're looking for. Whereas the basketball media guide was just one giant PDF file that you had to like leaf through to try and find. Well, now football has done it, and it's a 191-page PDF file. This is so annoying. I can't believe they did.
Do they even print them? Like, can I?
No, they haven't printed them in years. It's all online. You have to do it all online. So
I still have like some like old like Pitt media guides. Yeah, they're still around.
It's useful. Like you can actually leaf through it and find what you're looking for. I'm gonna have to download this damn thing and Control F all the way through the season. Let's see here. Voodoo IPA says when you score every drive, there's no need for a punter. Will Z says Pitt will pretty much have to score every drive to avoid punting.
We're kind of on the same wavelength.
Yeah. I mean, sounds like a plan. Scoring every drive seems like a winner, right? Seems like a winner.
What was it? Remember a couple years ago, whenever Kirk Christodoulou was the punter, and like there was like a weird game. They're like, you know what? He got demoted, and Alex Kessman punted for like a game or two. Do you remember that?
Was that in like his first year as a starter, like 20?
It was 18 or 19.
2018.
He was struggling, and they didn't really have any other options at punter. So Kessman was just kicking or punting and kicking.
He struggled that year. He had like some terrible shanks and drops and fumbles in the Penn State game, which went a long way in making it like a 51-6 game. What was Will Z asked, what was the punting issue during the Penn State 51-6 debacle? One big issue is he was wearing gloves.
Yeah.
You go back, you watch that, he was wearing gloves, and he never wore gloves in his career, and he wore gloves that night because it was pouring down rain. He never wore gloves again after that, and I don't think he fumbled another punt after that. But that night he put on gloves, and he couldn't handle the football at all. So, like, you remember, it was going to be like a 7-6 game or something like that at halftime, but then they had like a disaster on special teams. I think it might have been a fumbled punt.
He dropped the ball when he was going to kick it. Yeah.
And they got the ball at like the 30, and so they scored right before half, or maybe they scored like a scoop and score or whatever it was. And I think they had like 2 other short fields due to disastrous punting situations. And then Penn State like scored like in the final moments. So a game that really probably could have been 7-6 at halftime and could have been a final score of like 20-6. they get like 30 some points out of like disastrous field position by just awful special teams play. I mean, like, you can't really rationalize away a 51-6 loss, but I can try, and I could do a decent job because it wasn't as bad as it seemed, but it was still really, really bad. But
that was my first game as an employee of Panther-Lair.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. What was the opener that year? Did they?
I think I had like one of my good friends got married. I think.
Okay.
They played Albany, so like my first game, new job, 51-6.
Yeah, good times. It got better after that. Well, they beat Georgia Tech, but then they had a disaster at North Carolina, and there was a lot of things that went wrong that year. And UCF, that was a bad one, but none were. Well, I was going to say none were as bad as the Penn State game, but there were some really bad ones in there. Anyway, that was like 6 years ago. So we're moving on to 2024. Next Wednesday, we'll get together and we'll share all reflections on Pitt's Media Day, I presume. Assuming that happens next Wednesday, we'll have lots to talk about there. So thanks to everybody who tuned in tonight. Jim, thank you for your time. Thanks for all the comments and questions. Hope everybody had a great Wednesday. Enjoyed this conversation for an hour. Next week will be our first live show of the formal football season as it begins with training camp. So make sure you tune in for that. Like this video and subscribe to youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Catch up on the morning pit tomorrow. Have a good rest of your Wednesday night, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow right here. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.